Welcome to Charged Up Studio Live, where small business owners get charged up for success. Are you a small business owner? Do you find yourself struggling through the many responsibilities that come with the title entrepreneur? Well, we're here for you. Charged Up Studio is hosted by Marketatomy LLC, your prescription for what we call OPA. What is OPA? It's when you become so overwhelmed with the confusion that comes with business ownership that you become paralyzed and ultimately avoid doing anything in hopes it will take care of itself, or you put it off till later. Does that sound familiar? I'm your host, Dan Olivo, and each week we bring a business professional eager to charge you up as they talk about the many things that keep you from moving forward with your small business. So are you ready to get charged up for success? Let's hit it. So welcome back once again to another episode of Charged Up Studio, where small business owners can get the information and tips needed to grow and scale their new businesses. I'm Dana Olivo, your host, and this month we're focusing our efforts on businesses helping other businesses. With that in mind, our first guest this month is introducing us to a high-level community of entrepreneurs with resources, influence, skills, contracts, and imagination. Over the past 4 years, broadcasting the Charged Up Studio podcast, I can't tell you how many times I have made the statement that as small business owners, we cannot operate in a vacuum. We need to learn to reach out and ask for help, network, and engage with those who can provide guidance along the way. So today, we're thrilled to have a special guest on the show who is an expert in this area. He is a connector, conscious capitalist, and passionate about sustainability. He's going to introduce us to eLiances, founded by David Kogan, who asked the question on every business owner's mind: what's next? Let's give a warm Charged Up Studio welcome to Brion Crum. Hey, Brion, how are you doing?
Dana, I am fantastic. Really honored to be on the show with you today. Excited to share how our eLiances community has been helping people start and grow their businesses for over a decade now.
Oh, great, great. So I have one question that I ask every one of my guests, and to get things started so that our audience can get a better understanding of who we're talking to. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So if you could go back in time and give your young self some solid advice, what advice would you give him, and at what age?
I think I would probably go back to when I was in my late teens or early 20s. And it was when I was at that crucial point in university deciding what to do next. I had originally went to school to follow my passion of flying. So I was going into aviation, and quickly realized that that probably wasn't where the career path was going to be. But I remember that I was doing some computer programming. Even when I was a young child, I'd written some basic programs on my Commodore 64. And then I got to college and had a couple of programming courses, and decided that computers really wasn't for me. And it's one of those decisions I look back on, thinking about how early stage we were with the internet and software. And I would advise myself to have actually gotten involved in software back when I was younger, instead of waiting until much, much later to get involved in what we call tech entrepreneurship.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what we call persistence, okay? You know, especially starting out on Commodore 64, okay? You know, that was a effort in itself. Okay, I can see where you lost interest in that, you know, and everything. Nowadays, gosh, with AI and everything else, it's so exciting. You know, it's so exciting to see all this stuff. So,
It is.
you
I
know,
mean,
that's where,
if you
yeah,
think about, yeah, yeah,
Go ahead.
Oh, and I was just going to say, if you think about what kids are exposed to today, where they're literally playing with possibly iPads and iPhones when they're like toddlers, and to think about growing up with that amount of power right at your fingertips, it's pretty incredible to think about what kids can do to become entrepreneurs and business owners at such young ages now.
No, definitely. I've got a 4-year-old granddaughter that has been using the iPad. That's how she's learning. We have all learning elements on there and everything, the learning apps, and she is just so far advanced for 4 years old. We talk about not becoming attached, to our electronic devices. But nowadays, that's how the kids learn. You
Hmm.
just have to monitor what they're watching, what they're playing with. But that's how they learn. I mean, and especially after COVID, now all the kids, that's how they're learning.
Oh
So,
yeah. In fact, if it hadn't been for that adoption of technology, I mean, kids wouldn't have been able to learn during COVID because everyone had to go remote.
yeah,
So yeah, it's pretty incredible to think about, the changes that have happened just in the last 2 to 3 decades.
nope, that's exactly it. So let's talk a little bit about eLiances, your experience with it. Give me a little bit of background or give our audience a little bit of background on, first of all, how you got involved with it, and then a little bit about what it is.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We love sharing the story of eLiances and how it was started and how it's grown and a lot of the very cool success stories that we've helped create for people. eLiances was really started almost as an accident, just with a small group of people. About a dozen people would get together in Scottsdale, Arizona. This is going back to 2011 and 2012 at this point. And the concept of why we were gathering was that we would typically have an engineer, an attorney, an investment banker, an investor, business founders, people with ideas, and everyone would invite a guest and we would learn what they were doing. And then we would ask them, what's your biggest challenge and what's your biggest opportunity and what can we do to help? So it's really just a way to help people connect. And after doing that pretty informally for a couple of years, we got to a point where we realized, hey, this is really cool. We love being able to help people. What can we do to grow this and scale it bigger? And that was right around the time that the original group of members that was totally informal, didn't even have a name to it, met David Kogan, who became the founder of what is now known as eLiances, which stands for Entrepreneurial Alliances. And David said, Brian, this is really cool. This is pretty amazing. But what could we do to make it bigger? And part of the answer to that was, hey, let's move to a larger space where instead of only 12 people sitting around the round table, we would have 25 people. So we moved to a different venue, got 25 people together, and then we said, this is amazing. What if we did 40 people or 50 people? So once again, we found a larger venue, and this is around the time that this became a formal business, a formal community, instead of just a random group of people committed to helping other entrepreneurs. And we also started creating what's called eLianceships, which are really strategic partnerships. But one of the very first ones was with an associated group at Arizona State University, which is where they're incubating startups, not just from students, but also for faculty, including technology transfer out of the university. And they have a public-private partnership at kind of like an expanded part of their campus called SkySong. So SkySong is part of where the innovation occurs, not just at ASU, but has been used to help launch and grow other technology-related businesses in Scottsdale. So at that point, eLiances was formed. I mentioned earlier that we are now celebrating our 10th year of helping entrepreneurs. And when I say helping entrepreneurs, think about that entrepreneurial journey that everyone goes through, whether it's when you have that eureka moment and you had that idea on a paper napkin, all the way through to the people that have been successful. They might be serial entrepreneurs, and they're at that stage of their life that they want to give back to others. So that's really the founding story or the genesis of eLiances.
Well, that's really interesting. And basically, what you're talking about is a mastermind. When you're talking about, sharing stories, we just had one this morning among clients with for one of my clients, his clients. We held a mastermind forum today, and it's amazing what comes out in these masterminds. It's like they're able to share their issues or their celebrations, and things like that, without feeling as though they're going to be condemned for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's
Yeah.
important to understand that, this is another opportunity for businesses to get insight into how their customers are feeling about what they're offering, what they're delivering, all of this. So, let's talk a little bit more about how you talked about how it was founded, and
Mhm.
what was interesting to me was the fact that you talked about scaling it. All right. And then in the efforts of scaling, you ended up partnering, with universities, with different associations, and things like that. How difficult was it for you to scale it by partnering like this?
The partnerships, those eLianceships, were really a key to it. One of the other first eLianceships that we created is actually with the company that I work at now. So you actually see our logo on the wall behind me. So Caliber, along with Arizona State University, was one of those first eLianceships. And the reason that Caliber invested and partnered with eLiances is because Caliber, at the heart, even though we're an Inc. 500, Inc. 5000 fastest growing business in America for I think 8 years in a row now, we still view what we do as being very entrepreneurial, still managed by the two original co-founders. So that commitment to give back to the community and support eLiances was one of those examples. But the other thing that was really cool about this is what we found out about the power of media. So one of the other first eLianceships was with what's known in Arizona as Money Radio. So this is a local affiliate of a business channel. And the original radio show, so keep in mind, we're doing a podcast right now. So, I love and understand the power of podcasting, but the original eLiances Heroes show that we started with Money Radio was a 10-minute slot where we would interview 4 entrepreneurs. Sometimes they were celebrities. Like I was on one of the first eLiances Heroes radio shows. And the other guests that were on the show with me was Richard Branson.
Mm.
And why did Richard Branson reach out to this scrappy, startup entrepreneurship community? It was because we had some sort of media reach, and it was because of that first radio show with Money Radio called eLiances Heroes that we started getting in touch with proactively. So we didn't have to reach out to them; they were reaching out to us. So CEOs, founders of companies, celebrities were actually contacting eLiances saying, "We would love to be on your eLiances Heroes show." And because of that, it was one of the tools that gave us the ability to scale. Because now, instead of just relying on who we could meet in Scottsdale and the greater Phoenix area, which is definitely a hotbed for startups and has a very growing tech ecosystem, we're
Mhm.
connecting with entrepreneurs, not just from around the country, but from around the world. So that's another example of how these strategic partnerships really
Right.
helped us scale, where now we have well over 1,000 members all across the country and even the globe. And another reason for the growth was what happened, when COVID hit. Think
Yep.
about the pivots that entrepreneurs needed to make just to survive. And then once you got through that, a lot of entrepreneurs found ways to thrive and keep growing again. So having the ability to very quickly pivot from only doing in-person meetings in Scottsdale and Tempe, Arizona, to being
Mhm.
able to go 100% remote is another example of how an entrepreneur was able to pivot and not only grow, but accelerate growth during that time period.
Oh, very interesting. And the fact of the matter is, by connecting to people like, Richard Branson, and things like that, what our audience needs to understand is you're not only connecting to Richard Branson, you're connecting to his entire network when you're working with him. And
Exactly.
so we're talking about media, but we're also talking about market extension and market penetration. is what we're talking about. So, it's important to, to keep that in mind. So what are some of the programs or something like that, that you've already talked about your radio show, the Heroes radio show, but what are some of the other value-added programs that you introduced through eLiances?
Well, not surprisingly, you already hit the nail on the head with one of them. You mentioned masterminds. So a
Yeah.
few years ago, one of the ideas that a member had was, what if we created our own mastermind group? So we launched the first one, I think in 2018 potentially, and they're branded as eBrain Trusts.
Mhm.
So small letter E and then Brain Trust. So eBrain Trust is the internal mastermind that is available for eLiances members. We've got well over a dozen of them. I've been in one of them for several years, and I'm pretty honored that one of the other original kind of founding members of eLiances has been in my group, and it's great to see and hear the success stories that have come out of just our little 8, 9, 10 person eBrain Trust, because you're right, you do share things in those groups that you may not have others shared with other people, because you have that level of trust inside of them and a real true commitment to help others. And then because these eBrain trusts are inside of this greater community, when we realize what those challenges or opportunities are within our own group, we can with proper approval of not doing anything confidential, we can ask for help from the greater community then.
That's very good. That's very good.
So
Yeah,
the
I
eBrain
love
Trust
the idea.
Masterminds is
Yeah,
one of the very powerful newer programs that we
right.
have implemented inside of eLiances.
So when we start talking about masterminds and things like that, do you have separate levels of masterminds, for like higher end corporate, larger companies and then smaller companies? Do you operate with smaller companies? What?
Yeah, so the mastermind groups are put together pretty strategically, and in order to bring in a new member, everyone has to understand who the new people are. The new person is going to be, but there's not really any restriction whether it's a solopreneur all the way up to the CEO of a larger company. But we do have a lot of solopreneurs as well as founders of smaller companies. So I think that there's a bigger focus on helping that smaller entrepreneur. Although we do come across corporate executives that want to be more intrapreneurial within their companies as well. So there really isn't a restriction on that, but we do have different levels of membership within eLiances. So there's a level of membership that you have to achieve before you're actually eligible to participate in the eBrain
Right.
trusts.
Right. Right. I have a mastermind that I am working on right now, just getting ready to kick off in about six weeks, I guess it is. And we're setting it up the same way. My heart is with your small micro business owners,
Yep.
and getting them to a level to where's okay, they're going to step up and they're going to be ready to move on to another level, and things like that. But where I find is when you can mix some of your solo entrepreneurs and things like that with some more experienced ones, there's more learning that happens with the
Absolutely.
sharing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I,
But do
I
you
I
find that?
definitely agree with you there. Yeah,
Right. Do
we
you find
definitely
that?
see that.
Yeah. So do you have any stories about something like that without giving names?
There's so many different examples that we can share of eLiances members collaborating together and actually launching companies together. So that's something that's been very interesting. One of the main quote headquarters location, because obviously, if you're a virtual company, you don't need to have a physical location. But when we do meet in person, we meet at a co-working space. It's owned by one of our members. It's one of our other formal Alliance ships called MAC6 MAC6. So the actual location where we hold the majority of our meetings is a co-working space where members have taken over, gotten support, have office space there. So it's almost like having a company,
Yeah.
company clubhouse. So for people that are in Arizona, it is a great way for them to collaborate and start businesses together. Oh, and by the way, we actually have this co-working space that you can get started at. And then as you grow, you can move into larger locations. And then Caliber, our company, who is one of the early stage eLiances members, also just built our own co-working space near a growing and extended Arizona State University Technology Campus in downtown Mesa, Arizona. So while we have multiple locations where our members can get together and collaborate, I know that we're going to create even more of those success stories of people starting and growing companies together within eLiances.
So, are all of your masterminds, are they all held in person, or do you do virtual, or what?
When the program was first started, it was pre-COVID and everyone always met in person. But now, because we do have members from around the world, I have a member that travels to Africa frequently. We also have a member who goes between Canada and England. So our particular group meets all virtual. So each mastermind is given the ability to choose if they want to do in-person, hybrid, or all remote. So it's
Well, that's
flexible, just like everything else in this new world.
very interesting. And if somebody wanted to partner to bring eLiances to their area, what would be the process in doing that?
The process to learn about eLiances, everyone has to attend one of the Tuesday morning roundtables. So, I mentioned that this originally started with a group of 12 people getting together at a roundtable. So we kind of kept some of that initial genesis of the organization intact. So a Tuesday morning roundtable is held in person in Tempe, Arizona at this Max 6 co-working space. But then for the people that are joining virtually, we typically have about 25 in person and 25 virtually. So someone that is not in Phoenix, Arizona area can absolutely attend virtually. It's a very structured meeting. It takes about 3 hours to go through it. So the first step that someone would do, they could reach out to myself or go to eliances.com, ELIANCES.com to learn more. We could get them signed up for one of those Tuesday morning roundtables. And then depending on how it goes, if they are invited to become a member, then they can start learning about the other events. They can decide if they want to participate in one of these eBrain trusts. And then on an annual basis, we have a large in-person event. It's really more of a gala called the Grand Table. And the Grand Table brings together about 300 people in person from around the country. And usually it includes some of the VIP or celebrities that have been on the radio shows. So they get to come in and meet people. And we have the co-founder of Priceline as an example, Jeff
Right.
Huffman, who is one of the greatest humans I've ever met. He literally travels around the world, promoting entrepreneurship. And he's one of our members that wouldn't miss one of those grand tables.
Interesting. When you say Priceline, I immediately think of William Shatner.
We have not yet had William Shatner participate, but
For
that would
some
be actually
reason,
pretty amazing.
it does kind of come. I know now they've got the actress that is on. Oh, I can't remember the name of the show.
Yeah, it's escaping me too, but I think a natural extension of where we're heading next with this, because Arizona is a state that recently reinstated what's called a film tax credit. There are more and more TV shows, commercials, and even movies that are going to be filmed in Arizona. And we actually have kind of like this, almost like a subset that's growing of members that are very actively involved in all aspects of film and production, including actors. So there will be in the future some movies and shows that will have a very heavy reliance on eLiances members for the production
For
of those
casting and
films.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
Oh,
actually being
oh,
done in Arizona finally again.
interesting.
Yeah, so that would be pretty
Interesting.
cool.
Yeah, that's one of the things that has hurt us here in Florida. If I'm not mistaken, we still have that tax in place, and so they're moving up to Atlanta. A lot of them are going up to
Yeah,
Atlanta.
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
Atlanta, Louisiana, Albuquerque, New Mexico, surprisingly, are hotbeds of area for these production studios, and it was all based on these special tax advantages that
Wow.
they were given to basically reduce the risk and incentivize that production to occur there. So Arizona is about a decade late in the game, but because we have that now, there are Hollywood studios that will be moving and expanding to Arizona. And
Very
eLiances
interesting.
has some members that are right there at the forefront of all this. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, that's pretty exciting. So any of you out there who have thought about, starting a mastermind or getting involved in a mastermind, well, now you know where you can go is to eLiances and check it out. And who knows, you might meet, one of your most loved actors or actresses. You never know. Yeah.
You easily could. Yeah.
So we're coming up on the end of another podcast here. Brion, do you have any last minute tips you want to offer our audience?
Yeah, one of the things that we always share with that early stage entrepreneur that is feeling a lot of struggles and there's a lot of stress involved in this, is to let them know that they're not alone. Yeah, just to remind people that they're not alone, to reach out, to collaborate with others. If they happen to live in an area where there's a strong kind of support system for startups, whether it's a traditional true small business that never intends to scale, or something that's maybe more technology focused or technology enabled, that at some point is potentially going to need venture capital, and the goal is to grow it from that founding team to a large corporation. That everyone is facing a lot of those same struggles. So definitely, reach out, ask for help, and when you get to a point where you can give back, give freely of yourself. Offer that time, offer those resources, become a mentor. Is something that we've seen people get a lot of meaningfulness out of their lives when they get to that point where they can reach out and give back and help others.
Okay, great. So Brion, how can people get a hold of you or find out more information about eLiances?
Yeah, so conveniently, I have this great little app that connects with my Zoom, and people get to see that they can follow me on Twitter at Brion Crum, LinkedIn with my name being spelled funny the way that it is. I'm super easy to find on the internet, so they can feel free to reach out directly to me on social media, and then they could also go to eLiances.com, ELIANCES.com, to learn more as well.
Excellent. So that concludes our podcast for today. Please leave a review on any of the streaming platforms that you are listening to us on, or go to our Charged Up Studio Facebook page and leave a review there. Charged Up Studio is the product of marketatomy.academy, the e-learning system designed specifically with the micro business owner in mind. For more information and to register for our mini courses, go to marketatomy, marketatomy.academy. And that's it for another week. And I hope to see you next week with another exciting guest. Talk to you later.
You've been listening to Charged Up Studio Live, the podcast with you, the small business owner in mind, with your host, Dana Olivo. Join us every Tuesday as we bring you valuable tips and insights into many of the topics you don't know about growing a successful business. Please leave us a review on any of the streaming platforms you are listening to, or visit us on the YouTube or Facebook page and leave a review or subscribe so you don't miss another episode. You can also support us through Patreon by visiting our website, chargedupstudio.live, and click on the Patreon link. Until next week, go out and have a charged up week.